Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my reaction to the AP Top 25. Before I continue, hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. Have a subscriber goal of 200 subscribers that I would love to hit by the end of the month. So go ahead and hit that subscriber button. If you're not subscribed already, you won't regret it. So the way these videos work, if you haven't watched one of these before, is I usually put the AP pool up on your left, and then on your right you see the my top 25, the McD Sports 4 top 25. So what I do is really just compare my pool to the AP pool. So let's get started here. We start off with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. I agree with the top 4. Clemson 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3, and LSU 4. Listen, I look at I think you got to place Clemson and Alabama 1 and 2 in that order until they lose a game. And I will say this. I know Clemson has absolutely nobody on their schedule outside maybe South Carolina, and it looks like Wake Forest might give Clemson a bit of a run for their money because they did receive some votes and barely missed out on the top 25. But in my opinion, Clemson is still the number 1 team, but I will drop them possibly if teams have more impressive wins, A, and B, they're not beating teams convincingly. I will drop them despite them probably being undefeated. So Clemson, I think they're the best team in the country, yes, but the schedule's very weak. Number 2, Alabama. Alabama, I thought, played their most complete game against Southern Miss last week. A Southern Miss team that's going to play everybody tough. So I thought Alabama played well in the new kickoff. Nick Saban. I hope you like that one. But anyways, Alabama, I look at them. They have games against Texas A&M on the road. That's going to be a tough one. Auburn this year is going to be a tough one on the road. And LSU is going to be a tough one this year. So I look at those 3 games. I think they lose at least one of those 3 games. But they might still make the playoffs despite losing a game. But overall, Alabama, I think, is the second best team in the country. Georgia, listen, I was kind of low on Georgia because they just haven't really been that appealing. They got a win against Notre Dame. In my opinion, that compels them to the top 3. That's the best win in the country as far as I'm concerned as of right now. So I put Georgia at 3. They're going to get their shot probably against Alabama or LSU in the SEC championship game because I don't see anybody in the SEC East beating them. Maybe Auburn beats them. We'll see. But Georgia, at this time, I think they're at minimum they'll get a shot against Alabama or LSU or maybe even Auburn there in the East. Not in the East, in the SEC championship game. And then number 4, LSU. That Texas win is still very impressive. They went out and put 66 on Vandy. I know it's Vandy, but putting 66 on anybody is pretty impressive. I think they're the 4th best team in the country. I am a bit concerned about that defense giving up 38 to Vandy. But I think under Ed Orgeron, I think they'll get it straightened up. But LSU, in my opinion, they're going to get their shots against Alabama and Auburn this year. And so they might get eliminated if they lose both of those. If they win both of those, in my opinion, they are the number 1 team in the country. And then number 5, I do have a disagreement here. And I don't think it's a bad disagreement per se. The AP pool, they have a higher stand at number 5. Auburn, I have Auburn on number 5. Listen, Auburn has the 2. If you pair wins up together, I think Auburn has the 2 most impressive wins. Oregon, which is still in the top 25, in the AP top 25, and going into Texas A&M and beating them like they did, that's impressive to me. I put Auburn number 5 in my poll. Now, granted, they face Alabama and LSU this year and Georgia. They're losing at least 2 of those in my opinion. But Auburn, in my opinion, is definitely probably a top 10 team this year. I know some people are concerned about the offense, but overall, I think Auburn with that defense I think they're the 5th best team in the country right now. But I don't think the AP pool is wrong with picking Ohio State at number 5 because I'm going to get into why I think that in a second. Here's 6 through 10. Me and the AP pool, we agree that Oklahoma should be number 6. I don't think Oklahoma really has that much of an impressive win on their schedule. But the defense looks better than they did last year, and Jalen Hurts in his office. Jalen Hurts right now is your favorite for the Heisman. So I have picked Oklahoma at number 6. I have Ohio State on number 7. AP Pool has Auburn at 7. Listen, we just had those two flip flopped, and I do think Ohio State is probably a top 5 team right now. Yes, the way they look, they're dominating everybody. But here's the thing: Ohio State just does not have the wins for me to pit them over Auburn right now, comparing Auburn's wins. That's the problem I have with Ohio State. Do I think Ohio State will beat, let's say, Wisconsin, which they're facing later this year? Maybe a Michigan, who they're definitely facing later this year, and like Penn State, or like I think they get Nebraska this week. Can they beat those teams? I think they could beat all of them, but I have to have the wins for me to put them ahead of a team that has two impressive wins against top 25 teams, especially a team like Auburn when both games are not at Jordan Hare. At number 8, Wisconsin. AP Pool has Wisconsin at 8. I have Wisconsin at 8. I think Wisconsin is the 8th best team in the country. I look at them, top defense in the country right now. The offense is actually not looking that bad either with Jonathan Taylor. I know he went out with cramps last week, but it didn't really matter. They have a really good offensive line. They get Ohio State this year. That's going to be the game to watch in the Big Ten, in my opinion, this year. If you want to watch a game in the Big Ten, that game could be Wisconsin's season. So we'll see what happens. But Wisconsin, I think, is the 8th best team. And by the way, after Wisconsin, I'm going to be honest with you. As of right now, I'm going to say those 8 teams in no particular order: Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. As of right now, are your 8 teams that I think have a shot at the college football playoffs as of right now. There's a few teams I can make an argument for, which I will in this poll, but overall, I think those are your 8 legit teams. If you really want to think he's going to be in it, I think those are the 8 legit teams that will be contending for the college football playoffs. And number 9, the AP Pool has Florida. I have Penn State at number 9. I'm high on Penn State this year. So I know they faced my Terps this year, which, by the way, I hope my Terps win. I'm not too confident in my Terps this week. The way Penn State has basically kicked their ass the past 2 years or so. But Penn State, listen, I believe if you're high on a team, you stay high on them. That's what I'm doing right here. Until Penn State loses a game, they're going to be in my top 10, probably sitting at that number 9 spot. So we'll see what happens, but I like Penn State at number 9. The AP Pool likes Florida at number 9. The AP Pool has Notre Dame at number 10. I have Florida at number 10. Florida's not a top 10 team. They're not a top 15 team. But if you look at the resume, it's impressive enough. Unfortunately, you have to put them somewhere in the top 15. I'm not paying Florida below any one-loss team as of right now. I don't think the resume is that impressive. I think the Miami loss is looking pretty bad. The Miami loss. The Miami win isn't looking too hot right now. And the Kentucky win, that's not looking too hot either. So, yes, you have wins against 2 Power 5 programs, but those wins aren't looking that hot right now as Kentucky fell to Mississippi State. And Miami, they barely got past Central Michigan. The AP Pool, they have Notre Dame at number 10. I'll get into them here in a second. The AP Pool 11 through 15, they have Texas at number 11, Penn State at number 12, Oregon at number 13, Iowa at number 14, and Cal at 15. My pool, I have Iowa at 11. Listen, Iowa, I'm kind of high on them right now. I think they have an impressive win going into Iowa State and beating them, especially an Iowa State team that hung 72 this past week against UL Monroe. I know it's UL Monroe, but they almost beat Florida State, so I think that kind of looks like an impressive win right now. Do I think Wisconsin's better than do I think Wisconsin is better than Iowa? Yes, I do. Do I think Ohio State's better than Iowa? Yes, I do. I think Iowa might be the 3rd best team, though, in the Big Ten. I think Iowa and Penn State get to play each other this year. That'll probably be the battle for your 3rd best team in the Big Ten. I have Texas at 12. That was a pretty good win against Oklahoma State. You could have probably won that game by a bit of a bigger margin, but you kept on turning it over on special teams. But I do think Texas. I do think they probably have your best loss, your 2nd best loss of the season. And listen, I look at Texas. The Oklahoma State one is pretty impressive. They got votes to be in the top 25. So we'll see what happens. But in my opinion, I still think Oklahoma is better than Texas. And I still think Texas will lose at least one other game this year outside of Oklahoma. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I do think Texas is your 12th best team in the country. At number 13, I put Notre Dame. Notre Dame has the best loss in the country. But unfortunately, I refuse to pick any teams that with one loss this early in the season in the top 10. I didn't want to pick any teams with one loss this early in the season in my top 15. But unfortunately, I was running out of teams, so I had to throw a few teams in there with one loss in my top 15. I look at Notre Dame. Personally, I do think that Notre Dame does have a path to college football playoffs. I think it's a tricky path, though. I think they're going to have to hope that there's some two-loss Big Ten champions, two-loss Big 12 champions, two-loss Pac-12 champions, and probably a two-loss SEC champion for them to have a shot at the college football playoffs. I think they'll win the rest of their games this year, personally. They get Virginia this week. That could be their best win of the year. And I'll talk about Virginia here in a second. As you can see on my poll, I have Virginia at number 14. But Notre Dame, in my opinion, they're better than what I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to possibly get ran out the building by Georgia. They looked a lot better than I thought they were going to look. At number 14, I have Virginia. Virginia, in my opinion, is one of those teams. I was very high on them going into this year. They had a disappointing win against Old Dominion. They had trouble against them. They were down 17-0, I think, at one point before storming back, winning it 28-17. But I believe if you're high on a team, stay high on them. So they're undefeated, Virginia. I mean, they don't really have that impressive of a win outside maybe Pitt, because Pitt did beat UCF. And their two losses are against you and Penn State. So maybe Pitt is your impressive win. But overall, I'm high on Virginia. They get to face Notre Dame this week. I definitely give them a shot against Notre Dame this week, but we'll see what happens. I'm probably going to be picking Notre Dame in that one. But Virginia, I think they're a top 15 team. I really do. I really like Bronco Mendenhall, our head coach, and I also like Bryce Perkins, second best quarterback in the ACC right there. And then number 15 to round out the top 15, I have Oregon. Listen, Oregon, outside of the Auburn loss, which by the way is looking pretty good right now, they pretty much beat up on everybody. Now, granted, they beat up on Nevada team. I did upset Purdue, but I mean Nevada, they struggled against something as Weber State, and then they went ahead and beat Stanford, who might not probably make a bowl game this year the way they're looking. But Oregon, they look pretty good. I'm going to pick them at 15 here. I think there is a path for Oregon, though, to make the college football playoffs. I don't think they have much of a shot, though. I think they really had to win that game against Auburn for them to have a shot, and they didn't. In my opinion, Oregon, they have to hope that there's a two-loss SEC champion, not named Auburn. There's a two-loss Big 12 champion, and they got to hope Notre Dame loses at least another game, because I think Notre Dame will get put in 11-1 over a one-loss Pac-12 champion. So that's Oregon's path, in my opinion, and we'll see what happens. But overall, I think Oregon's the 15th best team in the country. Here's 16 through 20. AP pool, they have Boise State at 16. They have Washington at 17. Virginia at 18. Utah at 19. And Michigan at 20. I have Boise State also at 16. I think Boise State, as I said, if they get past Florida State, they're going undefeated this year. I highly believe that. They do get off to slow starts, though, and I think they might have some issues with that against a team like Utah State or maybe even like a Wyoming. But I do think Boise State is probably your best team in the group of five as of right now. They get the number 16 spot. Washington, they get number 17. They went into BYU, a BYU team who actually beat a team that is actually in this top 25, which I'll get into here in a little bit, and completely demolished them. So give Washington credit. They jump in my poll some. The path for Washington, in my opinion, is that they have to beat everybody on their schedule and hope there's some two-loss champions. That loss to Cal is not looking that bad right now. but which I'll get into here in a second. But Washington, I do think Washington is just 17th best team in the country. I have Cal at 18. Listen, Cal is one of those teams. They had a pretty good win, per se. I forgot who they faced. I think I want to say they faced. Actually, I forget who they faced, but they won their game. Cal did. Oh, they faced Ole Miss. They faced Ole Miss. Cal beat Ole Miss. To me, that's an impressive win on the mindset that they had to travel across the country for kind of a noon noon kickoff there. That to me, that's an impressive win for a West Coast team. If you look at Cal, they're undefeated. They have a legit win over Washington. We'll see what they do. The path for them is they gotta go undefeated. I don't think a one-loss Cal team will get into the college football playoffs over a one-loss Washington or a one-loss Oregon. Just saying. So I think Cal has to win now. They have a big game against Arizona State coming up this weekend. We'll see what happens in that one. But I think that Cal is a pretty good team. I have them number 18. Utah is number 19. Utah's loss against USC is not that bad of a loss. I had them at number 10 in my poll. I had dropped them, though. I put them at 19. I still think they're a top 25 team. I think they kind of got hosed a little bit by the refs in that one, but give USC credit, they won. But Utah is one of those teams. They're probably going to lose another game somewhere this year. They could possibly be in the Pac-12 championship, even though Arizona State's looking pretty good right now. And Colorado, they're actually looking pretty good as well at 3-1. They got a impressive win over Arizona State. But in my opinion, Utah, they are the 19th best team in the country. And up at 20, I have Kansas State. Listen, Kansas State's win over Mississippi State got a lot better after they beat Kentucky. Kentucky, I know they lost a lot, but they were a top 10 team last year, Kentucky. And Mississippi State beat them pretty convincingly. So I think that Kansas State win over Mississippi State is looking pretty impressive. And I think Kansas State, they could pull off an upset. I mean, that against maybe Oklahoma or Texas, they could beat one of those two. We'll see what happens. But Kansas State, I think they're a top 25 team. I have them at number 20. Here's 21 through 25. At number 20, AP pool, we have at number 21 USC, number 22 UCF, number 23 Texas A&M, number 24 Kansas State, and number 25 Michigan State. And number 21 at Michigan State, a team that found their offense finally. They looked very good offensively against Northwestern in their 31-10 victory over them. All 31 points came by their offense. That's very good if you're Michigan State with that defense. That offense doesn't even – I don't think the offense even needs to be like top 30 or top 40. As long as they're like top 60, that offense, Michigan State will go places. Now, granted, they have a loss against Arizona State, which is not that bad of a loss if you think about it. But Michigan State, I think they're a top 25 team, especially with that offense. I put them at number 21. Number 22, USC. Listen, USC, I do think that USC deserves to be in the top 25. When they played BYU, I left them out of my top 25 because I was like, yeah, they beat Stanford, but Stanford looked bad. USC, they got a top 10 win. That automatically puts you in the top 25, especially with the resume USC was making. They have some wins on that schedule. They have some wins so far on that schedule that are pretty impressive. That Utah win is very impressive if you're USC. I think they deserve to be in the top 25. I put them at number 22. Number 23, I put Missouri at number 23. Listen, I don't know what the hell happened against Wyoming, but they beat South Carolina convincingly. And they beat West Virginia convincingly. And West Virginia, that's a legit win now. West Virginia is 3-1. So Missouri, they're 3-1. I think they have legit wins, 2 legit wins in my opinion. I know South Carolina is 1-3, but South Carolina, all their games, I mean, listen, they lost to Alabama. They looked good against Alabama for a half before they got worn out. You look at the North Carolina game. Listen, I know North Carolina, they're on a 2-game skid against Wake Forest, which isn't a bad loss because Wake Forest is undefeated. And then that Appalachian State loss. I mean, Appalachian State might be a dark horse to make a New Year's Six Bowl. It's kind of a bad loss if you're North Carolina, but I Missouri, they dominated them by 20 points, 34-14. So I put Missouri in my top 25. We'll see where this team goes. They're until the Georgia game, their schedule is pretty easy. So we'll see what happens. But I think Missouri is the 23rd best team in the country. Number 24, I picked Michigan. I kept them in my top 25. I really didn't want to. I don't think Michigan is a top 25 team. I really don't. I looked at them play Middle Tennessee. That wasn't convincing. The Army game was not convincing, and they just got mollywopped against Wisconsin. That game was 35-0 at one point. I kept them in my top 25. I'm not going to drop a team from number like 8 to out of the top 25 unless it's like Virginia Tech losing to Old Dominion. But Michigan, they got to impress me. I think Michigan, they face Notre Dame, Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. Those are four games right there that I think Michigan has a chance of losing all four. I forget who else you get out of the Big Ten West. I want to say you get do you guys get maybe Purdue maybe? I forget who you guys get, but Michigan, they are not impressive at all. That team is not that good of a team. And then number 25, this might come as a little bit of a surprise, but I put SMU at number 25. And I'm going to make an argument for SMU over UCF right now. Yes, UCF, they blew out all of their opponents except Pitt and Stanford. They kind of smacked around some, but they lost to Pitt. And listen, that Pitt loss is not a bad loss. But if you look at SMU, they beat North Texas. North Texas is one of the best teams in the Conference USA. They beat Arkansas State, one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. They beat number 25 TCU on the road. That is an impressive win. They're 4-0 right now. The other wins against Texas State. So they're playing teams that aren't FCS schools. All four of their wins are not against FCS schools. Unlike UCF's 3-1 record, the first win is against Florida A&M. I know College Game Day went there a few years back, but that is still an FCS school. I think SMU deserves to get that number 25 spot. I think there's a 25th. I think there's a 25th best team in the country. I think they're better than UCF because I usually try to pick two group of five teams in my top 25. SMU is better than UCF. They deserve to be ranked over UCF in my opinion. I think that UCF ranking is garbage personally. And Texas A&M rating is garbage as well. I had Texas A&M at number 22. If the Warriors in my pool, if you lose, if you're in that 21 to 25 slot, so that means this upcoming week, if Michigan State, USC, Missouri, Michigan, or SMU, if any of those teams lose, they're out of the top 25. Listen, and that's why I had Texas A&M at. I dropped them. I dropped Washington State after that. Embarrassing loss to UCLA, blowing a 49-17 lead. There is no excuse for that. I dropped them. I dropped Texas A&M, and I dropped UCF, and I dropped Arizona State as well. So that's basically what happened. We'll see what happens this week. We're gonna have my picks out on Wednesday. And we'll see what happens. But that's basically my top 25. Comment down below. Tell me your top 25. Always like hearing from you all. Thanks for watching the video. Hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. Don't forget about the subscriber goal. Thanks for watching. And this is McD the Beast here signing off.